Hey everybody, and welcome back to another edition of the Press Enterprise High School Football Video Podcast. I am Press Enterprise Sports Editor Tim Hare, and we couldn't get a special guest this week, so we're stuck with this guy, Assistant Editor Dan Riley. I kid, of course. Thanks for joining me once again, Dan.
It was a long trek from the desk, but
It was. You're no Roy Dennis, but
No.
you are here.
I'm not Jim Doyle either,
You're not Jim Doyle either.
unfortunately.
So let's talk about some football.
Yeah.
Interesting week once again in Bloomsburg. Anthony Russo, his 2-week suspension was up,
Yeah.
and upon returning, tenders his resignation. Are you surprised?
A little bit, yeah. Definitely, considering it seemed like it was an issue potentially that could have been cleared up. It's not like he was suspended for the rest of the season or anything like that. So I had fully expected him to come back and take over the program, but potentially he thought it was better to go the opposite direction, and here we are.
Yeah, and we didn't hear back from Russo when we were doing the story about his resignation, but I was kind of on the fence. Part of me felt like he was going to see it through and then maybe not come back in 2017. But I think especially after they beat Hughesville,
Sure.
there was kind of a growing movement among the players that they wanted Seabrook to have Kevin Seabrook to have the job. And I'll say this: I know you covered Bloomsburg this week. It'll be your first chance to
Yes.
to deal with Kevin Seabrook.
Yep.
But I can see why the players respond to him. He just his temperament. He seems to be a little different than Russo, who's a little more in your face, a little more fiery of a guy.
Sure.
And I feel like Kevin Seabrook, just his temperament. He can be a fiery guy. It's something he can do, but I
Right.
think he relates to the players a little more. In his job, he deals with teenagers, to juvenile center, and I feel like that's just a skill that he has, where he can relate to young people on a very human level, and I think that has served him well these 2 weeks. That the players really want to play for him.
Yeah, certainly it's not his first go around in coaching. I mean, it is
Well,
his
with
first
head coaching.
Yeah, it is his first go around in varsity as a head coach. But he spent time at Danville. I remember seeing him a few years back. I mean, I don't necessarily remember him interacting with players, but he was a JV coach, so I mean, I'm there to cover varsity. So
Right.
But I remember Kevin, and from what I can tell, it sounds like he's a very level-headed guy, and if the kids respond to him well, then the main thing is it's all about the kids, and you want them to be happy. So if they're happy with who their coach is, that's really all that matters.
And clearly, one of the things that has them happy is that win over Hughesville last week.
Yeah.
Some moron picked them to lose by I think I said 38-14 or something like that.
Yeah, I think it was something like that.
Clearly, it didn't play out that way.
Did not. Yep.
And I got some good-natured ribbing
Good
on
for you.
Twitter.
Keeps you on your
I had it
toes.
coming.
Yep.
Were you surprised by the result, the Bloom beating Hughesville?
I was, yeah. Just judging, I haven't had a chance to see Hughesville either, but I know, coming into the season they were very strong.
Big line.
Yeah.
They have that Josh Dauberman,
Sure.
all-state type kid.
Yep.
Good skill positions.
Right.
I really just thought they had maybe a little too much talent for Bloom to compete.
I think it's a fair assumption on your part, and anyone's part, really. I mean,
But now say this: Bloomsburg went out and got it done.
yeah.
Where do you think they go from here? They're 3-3. Pretty definitive win last week. Is this a playoff team?
It certainly could be. I think we'll know more after the South Williamsport game tomorrow night.
What do you see happening there?
I see. Well, it's tough to argue with what Gideon Green's been doing over at South Williamsport this
Sure.
year. Power run team, and they are going to run the ball 50, maybe 60 times.
Yeah,
I mean,
Green had 43 carries last week in a win over Loyal Sox. So
Yeah.
they're clearly not going to shy away from getting him the ball.
if they can somehow be able to contain that power run game, particularly up the middle, they'll have a shot. It's not like Bloom has a shortage of playmakers on that team. So
Do you think they win? Put me on the spot.
right now, I don't, but if you ask me at halftime tomorrow night,
If I ask you at
could be
9:01 tomorrow
completely-
night.
yeah, it could be a completely different story.
Right. I know I just got done doing the predictions, and, a week ago, if you'd asked me to pick a score on South Bloom, I probably would have said South like 42-21 or something
Yeah.
like that. I'm still picking South,
Mm-hmm.
but I feel a little better about that Bloomsburg defense after how they shut down Hughesville. I think it's something in the neighborhood of 28-21, a one-score game.
Yeah.
And if Bloom did win, I would be a little surprised, but I wouldn't be shocked.
No, I don't think I would be either, especially the way they played against Hughesville last week. That's a quality win against a quality team.
Yeah,
so.
and I just feel like for South's part, they're coming off a win against a very good Loyal Sock team, and I think that just kind of marks them as being the class of the Heartland
Yeah,
3.
yeah, and that's.
And this is essentially a Heartland 3 championship.
This will be. I mean, if Bloom does lose, this is a good. You can take a lot away from a game like this. So
Yes.
We'll see what happens.
Now, and they're set up for later in the season. We're talking about the playoffs. There's going to be a very interesting Bloom Central game this year in Week 10 because there's going to be a lot on the line.
Oh man.
So let's talk about Central a little bit.
Yeah.
Coming off a nice win over Warrior Run. Now they get that Hughesville team that's probably feeling a little salty after a loss in the final seconds against Bloom.
Yeah.
What do you see from Central Hughesville?
Well, Central seems to not be bothered by that loss they had against Danville a couple weeks ago. It's week to week for them, as it should be for any team, and I'm pretty sure it is. Central's got if Bloom can knock off Hughesville, Central has a very legitimate shot of winning this game then tomorrow.
I feel like Bloom and Central are not necessarily style-wise, but just in terms of talent, fairly comparable.
Yeah.
I'm picking Central to beat Hughesville. Again, I think it's like a one-score game. I think it's going to play out a lot like that Bloom-Hughesville game. I think the biggest difference for Central, because they'd lost 2 in a row, and I covered them last week, and I had shaved the beard.
Yeah.
And Scott Dennis said to me, he said, "You can't grow the beard back now. We turned things around, and I'm sorry if you had plans to grow the beard, but..."
What's going on here?
A little stubble. Stubble.
not
Scott Dennis
technically-
might come to my house and knock on my... Are you shaving in there?
Right. Not technically a beard, but
It's not. It's more apathy than anything.
has the makings to be a beard.
It could be.
It could be.
But no, I do like Central, beard or no beard.
Yes.
To beat Hughesville and really kind of put themselves in a position to maybe get a home playoff game, because right now they're the 5 seed in an 8-team field.
Yep.
And they're within shouting distance of a number 4. That would be that's a win for Central if they come out of the season. No one's going to pick them to win a state championship,
right?
But it's a win for them in Scott Dennis's first year to maybe finish 7-3, 6-4, get a home playoff game, and just build on that season with a young team.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that at all.
Now, we're saving it for the end here, but it's our game of the week. Only 3 unbeaten teams in District 4. 2 of them are playing in Montoursville Friday night, Southern Columbia and Montoursville. We talked about it a little before we started recording, and we disagree a little about how this game's going to go.
Yeah.
You like Montoursville to win the game.
I do.
Defend yourself.
The defense is the Warriors are winning close games. They have more experience, a little more maturity. Well, maybe not maturity, but they've got some older talent on that team. Guys that have been around, know what it takes to win, know what it takes to win against Southern. And I like that they're at home tomorrow too. So I mean that could play a factor, not necessarily a huge one, but I just think Montoursville's winning those close games, and if they find themselves in a situation where it's close tomorrow night, they can win it.
See, and now I like Southern to win it, but 2 things give me pause.
Okay.
One is that when they played in the district final last year, Hunter Thomas just went off, ran for about 250, and was really the difference in why Southern won that game last year. He's not playing this time. I feel like Southern's going to have to sort of lean on Gage Garcia. only a freshman, but he just seems to be the kind of kid who doesn't get scared on the big stage.
Yeah.
He seems like the kind of kid who steps up in those kinds of situations, and we'll find out. But I feel confident that Gage Garcia is going to have a pretty nice game for Southern. He's going to touch the ball a lot.
Yeah.
The other thing that gives me a little pause with Southern is that Montoursville likes to throw the ball a lot, obviously with Bryson Musina.
Mm-hmm.
And Southern hasn't really gotten much of a pass rush this year. They're going to have to... Musina can't be comfortable.
No.
He can't stand in a perfect
No.
pocket and
No.
look for receivers.
Right.
They have to get in his face. They have to harass him. They have to get some hits. Even if they're not getting sacks.
Yeah.
Just rush some throws.
Yeah, you have to make them uncomfortable.
Yeah, and Southern, they've had trouble making opposing quarterbacks uncomfortable. It hasn't been an issue, obviously, because they're 6-0 and they're rolling along.
Right.
But in a game where the teams are this evenly matched, I feel like that's going to be the difference, where that front eight just harass Bryson Musina.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what type of game plan Jim Roth has dialed up tomorrow night.
Yeah, having covered Southern as much as I did in the past, they just tend to be aggressive.
Yeah.
They are going to live and die by the blitz a lot
And
of
they
times.
know.
And send one more than you can block. And that's usually the game plan with Jim Roth and Andy Mills.
Oh, they know that. They know the task at hand tomorrow night. They know what a victory against Montoursville this year would mean, and how much it could benefit some of those players on that team as they go on throughout the course of their career.
Sure. Not that Southern needs to be legitimized
No.
when you're a 7-time state
No.
champ with a coach who's knocking on the door of 400 career wins.
Yeah.
But this is a new group, a lot of freshmen.
Yeah.
This is the first big game a lot of them will be playing in.
I'm sure they're eager
And-
to prove themselves, too.
Right. And a win here, it's really going to be a feather in the cap.
Yep.
What do you see as far as the final score?
Oh, boy. Two high-scoring teams. Let's go 42-35 Montoursville.
They did have a track meet last year. What, 55, 50?
Oh, boy. Something like it was like 56-50,
56-50.
I think.
Yeah. I don't see them combining for 100 points this time.
I don't either, but
But
it's possible. That's why you play the game, I guess.
anything you want to add here? You want to talk about the PE tailgate, food,
Tomorrow, meatballs.
meatballs? There will be pictures on Twitter.
That's all I got. Meatballs.
This
Cake.
This is why we need special guests. Now you're just shouting
I
words.
know.
Meatballs, cake,
Rolls.
food. All right.
Okay.
You're done. Well, that's going to do it for this week's podcast. But if you liked what you saw, please check out pressenterpriseonline.com. The podcast will be embedded on the site, and during games you can we live tweet, so you can see the stream of our tweets, and we have the scoreboard that's updated with quarterly scores. The playbook, our weekly preview edition that we put out is also on the website. So please check that out. You can also follow us on Twitter. I am at TimHare87. You are
At Dan_Riley 51.
So if you want to tweet at us or check out what we tweet, if you want to talk some trash to me about my predictions, I welcome it. So I think that's going to do it. For Dan Riley, I am Press Enterprise Sports Editor Tim Hare, and we will see you next week.